All right, we are on cycle 1. I put in this excerpt about verb tense because in this section of text, it's really important that we understand what verb tenses are. There are 3 main types of verb tenses. There's past, present, and future. Remember that a verb is an action word, so run, strut, remember. And we are going to try to identify what tense Max is using in our reading today. So I'd like you to pause the video and read what each of those tenses are so that you're ready to identify it. Go. Now that you've read that, you know what past, present, and future tense are. Let's move on to our book. You might notice that in the book for today, there are little dots where I want you to stop. I put those in so that it's easy for you to know when to stop, even when you're reading independently. Let's go to page 6. Please follow along in your book. Up from the down under. That summer, let's see. I'm still living in the basement, my own private down under in the little room Grim built for me there. Glued up this cheap paneling, right? It sort of buckles away from the concrete cellar walls, a regular ripple effect. But do I complain about the crummy paneling or the rug that smells like low tide? I do not, because I like it in the down under. Got the place all to myself and no fear of Graham sticking her head in the door and saying, Maxwell, dear, what are you doing? We're going to pause after that first paragraph and look at our first few questions here. So we're looking at that first line of text. That summer, let's see, I'm still living in the basement. If we changed it to that summer, I was living in the basement, first of all, the first question I have is what summer is Max referring to and what's important about that summer? Pause the video and answer that question. And then moving on, what tense is each line written in? If you need to look back at our definitions up here about what each one is, looking at the first one, I want to see the original version is this tense, and then altered version is this tense. Pause the video and let me know. And then, why might Philbrick have chosen to write Max's narration using the tense in the original version? So instead of changing it to our altered version, why did he keep it like this? What does that show? Remember to look up here if you get confused. Pause the video if you need more time. He also adds the phrase, let's see. What's significance about that phrase? Let's see. What does that mean? Pause the video if you need more time to answer those questions. We are going to go back to our book. Second paragraph. Not that I ever do much of anything. Grim has it fixed in his head that I'm at a dangerous age and they need to keep me under observation. Like I might make bombs or start a fire or whack out the local pets with my trusty slingshot or whatever. Except I never had a slingshot. It was Grim who had one when he was my age. The proof is right there in the family photo album. You can see his blurry little miniature Grim with no front teeth grinning at the camera and yanking back on his prehistoric slingshot. Good for whacking mastodons, probably. Just proper targets, Grim says, closing up the photo album. End of discussion. Like, oops, better hide the evidence. Don't want to give the dangerous boy any ideas. Not that I have any ideas. My brain is vacant, okay? We're going to pause. I want you to think about which definition of vacant we are using. Is it no one's living there or not any thought or expression? I want you to make a note of that in your head. Which definition of vacant is he using? I'm just this critter hiding out in the basement, drooling in my comic books or whatever. All right, I never actually drool, but you get the picture. We are going to pause there and answer the rest of our questions for this cycle. We want to consider this excerpt from page 7. Just proper targets, Grim says, focusing or closing up the photo album. End of discussion. Like, oops, better hide the evidence. Don't want to give the dangerous boy any ideas. Who is the Phrase dangerous boy. Who does that refer to? Is it Max, Freak, Grim, or Graham? Who is that referring to? Who might Grim think is the dangerous boy? All right. Second question. Whose perspective is Max voicing in this excerpt? What do you notice about his tone? So thinking about that, it says right up here, whose perspective is he thinking from? What do you notice about his tone? Pause the video if you need more time. Moving on to our next excerpt. Not that I have any ideas, my brain is vacant, okay? I'm just this critter hiding out in the basement, drooling in my comic books or whatever. Alright, I never actually drool, but you get the picture. What might Max mean by his brain is vacant? I wanted you to make a note of that. Put it down. And then when else has Max referred to himself as a critter? Why might he choose to do this? And what does the phrase or whatever suggest? Think back to chapter 1. When did he refer to himself as a critter? Pause the video, look back in your book if you need to. And then finally, consider the final line. All right, I never actually drool, but you get the picture. What is the picture Max wants us to get? And how might this hyperbole, we remember hyperbole from Bud Not Buddy, the extreme exaggeration, help us get the picture? Put that down, move on to cycle 2 when you are ready.